Hey, New Tech. Welcome to another action-packed Unity session. So far, we have made single-shot sampler interactions, sliders that play loops that stay in sync, buttons that allow you to add other loops that stay in sync, and toggles that activate and stay on and play in sync as well. And these toggles and buttons, we had to use specially made scripts to extend the functionality of Unity. So today I'd like to get this organized. It's, I've been working along developing, and I'd like to reorganize my patch today so that it makes a bit more sense to me now. And this is something that happens in development a lot, that you get to a certain stage and it starts to look really quite busy and messy and not very well organized. And there's lots of different ways that we can organize this now. And but before I start with that, the first thing I'd like to do is duplicate this toggle that we've made. I'd like to make a few of those. But before I do that, I do have some organizing to do. At the moment, it's got kind of a bit of a dud name, because there's actually I think in this button it's linked to an audio source from memory that is currently playing shakuhachi sounds. So it's not very descriptive for a start. It's a koto, if you're wondering, is that kind of twangy sitar, like zither instrument. Looks like a big Malibu surfboard, but it's got, I think, 12 or 16 strings on it. And the shakuhachi's like a bamboo flute. So I've got to fix that up. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to close my audio source folder for a minute. The location of this audio source thing is kind of somewhere in the patch. Doesn't actually have a physical location that I can move around, even though there's a transform attached to it. So it's not much point me trying to organize that into a physical reality. However, the things on the main panel are different. And what I'm going to do is show you a crafty little technique that is quite peculiar to Unity. What we do is that we go up here and we create, there's a little menu in here I haven't showed you yet. So far we've been going up here to game object, and we could go create empty. We could use the shortcuts for this. But what I want to do is click on my main panel and create an empty game object and put it in my main panel. And there's nothing in it at the moment. I want to rename it, and I'm going to rename it Toggle Looper 1. And what I'm going to do is put this button that I've created there that has, and if you can't remember what this does, it's this one. And I'm going to put that inside it. And you can see that it appears inside. And the other thing I'm going to do now is put the corresponding audio source in there. I'm going to place that in there as well. So I've got two objects in there and they're tied to each other. And I'm going to call it toggle loop and call it toggle1 audio source. And this game object here, which is actually the button, I'm going to call it toggle1 button. And then what I can do is grab this and I can duplicate that and rename. Renaming this empty though shell, I've still got to rename these inside. It might be better just to have no numbers in there. And then I can duplicate this and rename this number 3. And there I've got 3, and they're at the moment they're sitting in here. So if I click on this one and I zoom out, you can see the button is there, and I can move that. And then I can click on this one and move that out there. And maybe for symmetry, we'll just do one more. Like so. And now I've got to program them all with different sounds. So toggle 1 is there. And if I go to my audio, say I put some of these taiko loops in here. Taiko 1. Second audio source, taiko 2. The third audio source, taiko 3. And the fourth audio source will be taiko 4. Now the buttons should all be linked to their corresponding links inside these game objects. So let's test that out. So I've got 4 loops. Now, what I can also do with this these empty objects here is create in my asset a new folder and call it prefabs. And a prefab in Unity is a special thing. When you create a folder, you can drag, you know, an object or a special collection object into it, into this prefab folder, and it'll create a prefab. So this is a handy little chunk that I can make up little libraries of objects here. And next time I want one, I can click on this and drag it out and put it in my patch. Now keep in mind this this object here is an empty object, and so if you want to start to move it around, you'll have to click on the button. And we're moving the button component of that prefab object around. But there's more to that object. There's an audio source connected to it. And once again, I can put a different audio file in there. Test it out. Which is pretty cool. So prefabs, handy, and empty game objects, very handy. And now this is much more organized. And some of this other stuff I could do the same thing with. I could put the audio sources that go with the sliders, I could actually put them into the game objects as well, like so. And that way I could have all of that contained in the one object. And I could click and drag the audio source down there. And as long as you know which ones are which and you have them numbered, then you can have all of those organized as well. And slider for Taiko Loop 3. Now you might ask, does it matter, is there a hierarchy here? And yes, there is. There's a visual hierarchy in Unity. And what happens is that if there's graphical content that's overlaid on top of each other, usually you have to move that object higher up in, say, something like a panel, in a nested panel. So what I'd like to do now is create another game object. There's a few audio sources there. I can tidy them up later, but you can see now all the audio sources and the interactions are now combined. And I waited until I got them working and, you know, I understood the mechanics of the patch and everything. And that's when I combined those and made a prefab. It's a good idea to make a prefab at a mature stage of the interaction, because if you want to go and change it now, like, for example, say I want to add effects, I would have to go and add that effects stage onto every one of those buttons. So it's important to kind of work those things out as well as you're going. But anyway, you know, there's lots of functionality kind of blooming on the app now. The design is suffering from it. And I feel like I need to put something else on here to break up the interaction. So I've got this graphic in here of a high-res transparent GIF, and I want to place this kind of image of the fish on this panel here. But so what I'm going to do is select a game object, and once again I'm going to use that raw image object. And you can see here it's created a little space here. I'm going to put the fish into there. And then I'm going to resize it. And you can see how it's sitting over all of those buttons now. So if I put it right at the top, all of the buttons will sit on top of that, and the faders as well, which makes the fish look as though it's been kind of recessed into a panel. And just to finish off this tutorial today, I've put one extra script in our folder, which is called Dancing Image. And if you bring that up in your Mono Develop, you'll see it has a name, Dancing Image. We've got a number of variables that we've created, each of which is a public variable. We've got an integer, we've got a float, and we've got another float. One of the integers called detail, the float's called minimum value, and the other float is called the amplitude. And what I've got here is a couple of functions. I've got a kind of a start function, which makes this activate when you load the Unity program. And then I've got an update function here, which is using the audio listener. And it's kind of this is the Unity equivalent of that little meter object that we used in Max to pump out a floating point variable based on the volume of the audio. And then what I'm doing here is I'm capturing that information from the Unity's device called the audio listener. And Unity, unlike Max, which is more pure computer programming, Unity is all set up. It's a bit like an opera where you have you set the stage, you put the characters on the stage, you light them in 3D, you add music and sound, but we perceive the interaction as a voyeur and as a listener in Unity. So every Unity patch has a camera, a directional light, and an event system, which allows us to reach in and interact with the characters on our stage. And as part of that, there's a set of ears on the camera in Unity, and we call that the audio listener. And basically what it allows you to do is set up audio sources in a 3D kind of game environment space, and then as you travel around, your perception of where you are in the space will feed that sound back to your ears. So that's the part of Unity that this script talks to. And then what it does is it takes the information, and because it's audio information, it has a positive and negative deflection around the origin or zero line because it's a vibration. there's positive and negative values. So I have to create this variable here called packaged data. And this is not a public one. This is one that is just existing inside the script. And then what I'm doing is a mathematical application to that here, where I take the absolute value and throw away the minus sign, so to speak, and just get a value out of there. So every deflection away from the 0 gives me a positive value, which then I use to multiply against the scale of the image. So how to get this to work? I have to use a raw image or a sprite. I can also put this thing on a button. You know, you might have a button that's a drum, and you might want that drum to vibrate or something. This could be a cool way of doing it. So I've got my raw image there, and what I'm going to do is just simply drag this script onto it like that and let go. And you'll see down here it's added that extra functionality now onto the game object. Functionality that we've created through scripting. And you can see now the image is kind of animating. And it's pretty wild. And it may be that that's too much, and I have to adjust it. So I'll take my maximize on play off, and I'll press play here, and I'll get these things going. And then I can have a look in my dancing sprite script here, and I can take this value down. Or maybe by a factor of 10. It's very sensitive. Now, one of the advantages of working with scripts is that I have the same script functionality in all of these toggle objects that I've made here. And it could well be that I want to change the color. Now I'll do more on color, setting color. It's not as easy as doing it in Max actually. But Max is great at giving you an idea of what color is and how 4 variables or a vector 4 variable, we call it in Unity, will map to color. But if you want to change the color, there is the most basic way to do it, and probably like if we open this toggle looper script, there are kind of built-in colors in Unity. White will actually, because we're doing tinting here, where, you know, if I write in red there and black there, you see what happens. And what I've got to do now is save this script. And I've modified the script. And now you'll see that these buttons will behave differently. Oh, for some reason it's tinted my panel as well, which is a bit strange. Okay, seems to be behaving now. So when I hit one of these buttons, it should go red. And then when I turn it off now, it should be tinted black. Okay, so that's what happens when you use black. And so I better change that back. And it just does, you know, the primary colors. You know, just try that today and see if that will work for your app. And if you want a specific color value there, then we'll have to write in a vector 4 instead of these things. And we will have to set that vector 4 in the script as a new variable. So why just try changing it. There's a blue tint. So that's it for today.